bisschen warten, bis alles eingestellt ist. Beziehungsweise können wir auch Sound löschen. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Vijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Sitaram ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jajam Udhirayet. Okay, Deutsch oder Englisch? Wer versteht kein Englisch? 1, 2. No. Who doesn't speak German? Yeah. So, 2 don't speak German, so I think in English. Huh? Kannst du für Kishori Kundi übersetzen? Mach mal Englisch. Okay, ganz kurz. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10, Verse 12. Okay, it's a little bit difficult meter. It's similar to, I'll try the meter from the Brahma Samhita. Let's do word by word first. Dagvatmam Krityam Hata Krityam Ahan Kabandham Sakhyam Vidaya Kapibhir Dayita Gating Taihi Budvatam Valini Hate Palavagendram Plavagendram Sainyair Velam Agat Sam Manujo Ajam Vya bhavarchitam grihi Dagvatma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham Dagvatma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham Sankyam vidaya kapivirdayita gatim tahi Budvatavali hate Budvatavali hate plavagendra sanyair Budvatavali hate plavagendra sanyair Velam agatsamanujyo jabavarchitam grihi Velam agatsamanujyo jabavarchitam grihi Dagvatma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapivirdayita gatim tahi Budvatavali nihate plavagendra sanyair Velam agatsamanujyo vyavarchitam grihi Dagvatma kritya krityam aham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapivirdayita gatim tahi Budvatavali nihate plavagendra sanyair Velam agatsamanujyo vyavarchitam grihi Aham kabandham Dagvadma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapivirdayita gatim tahi Budvatavali nihate plavagendra sanyair Velam agatsamanujyo vyavarchitam grihi. Nahimant, ladies. Dagvatma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapivirdayita gatim taihi Budvata valini hate plavagendra sanyayir. Velamagat samanuyoja vyavarchitangrihi. Word by word, synonyms. Dagva, by burning. Atmakriya hata kriyam, krityam. After performing religious rituals required after the death of Jatayu, who died for the Lord's cause. Ahan, killed. Kabandham, the demon Kabanda. Sakyam, friendship. Vidaya, after creating. Kapibihi, with the monkey chiefs. Dayita, Gatim, the arrangement for delivering Sita. Taihi, by them. Budva, knowing. Ata, thereafter. Valini hate, when Vali had been killed. Plavaga Indra Sanyahi, with the help of the soldiers of the monkeys. Velam, to the beach of the ocean. Agat, went. Saha, he, Lord Ramachandra. Manujaha, appearing as a human being. Aja, by Lord Brahma. Bhava, and by Lord Shiva. Archita Angrihi, whose lotus feet are worshipped. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Ramachandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, had assumed the form of a human being. Thus, he performed the funeral ceremony of Jatayu, who was killed by Ravana. The Lord then killed the demon named Kabanda, and after making friends with the monkey chiefs, killing Vali, and arranging for the deliverance of Mother Sita, he went to the beach of the ocean. Purport. When Ravana kidnapped Sita, he was obstructed on the way by Jatayu, a large bird. But the powerful Ravana defeated Jatayu in the fight and cut his wing. When Ramachandra was searching for Sita, he found Jatayu almost dead and was informed that Sita had been carried off by Ravana. When Jatayu died, Lord Ramachandra did the duty of a son by performing the funeral ceremony, and then he made friends with the monkeys to deliver Sita Devi. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyanangyana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shayuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padam Vojo Radhamadana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Radangara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Upreshtalivi Savyamano Smarami Srimandra Sarasaram Vivam Siva Tatatasitaha Karsham Veno Sunair Gopir Gopinata Shriyastunaha Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again the verse. Dagvatma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham sakyam vidaya kapivirda yitagatim tahi budva tavalini hate plavagendra sanyair velam agat samanujoja vyavarchitang grihi. The translation. Lord Ramachandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, had assumed the form of a human being. Thus he performed the funeral ceremony of Jatayu, who was killed by Ravana. The Lord then killed the demon named Kabanda, and after making friends with the monkey chiefs, killing Vali, and arranging for the deliverance of Mother Sita, he went to the beach of the ocean. So today is Ram Navami, and we are reading from the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this also gives an indication of the position of Lord Ram, Sri Ram. So I think in the 9th canto there's probably maybe 3 or 4 chapters dedicated to Lord Ram. And it's just before the 10th canto. The lineage of Lord Ram is the lineage of the sun. So there are 2 main lineages that are traditionally the lineages of the kings. There's the Surya Vamsa and the Chandra Vamsa. So the lineage that is coming from the sun god, and the lineage coming from the moon god. So these are the 2 royal dynasties. Basically, when you read the Bhagavatam, very many sections of the Bhagavatam, and especially the 9th canto, has a long list of names, many kings, and then whenever in a certain lineage some very interesting or important personality appears in a lineage, then that story is highlighted or elaborated upon. But many parts of the Bhagavatam, you just have lineages, lists of different kings counted, mentioned one after the other. So Lord Ram appeared in the solar dynasty, Surya Vamsa. And Krishna appeared in the Chandra Vamsa. So you could say both lineages were blessed at different times with the appearance of Krishna directly, or great personalities. So Sri Ramachandra's Leela is mentioned in the 9th canto, just before the 10th, Maryadama Purushottama. So Maryadama Purushottama means that he is the exemplary human being. So Maryadama Purushottama, Purusha means human or controller, enjoyer, can also mean directly the Lord. So Purushottama, he's the best among the humans, and he's Maryadama. He behaves like an ideal human being. And Krishna is, who knows, also Purushottama, but he's not Maryadama Purushottama, he's, Leela Purushottama. So Lord Ram actually comes to give an exemplary behavior. And actually it's very interesting that in the Ramayana also, in the Ramayana, actually in the beginning of the Ramayana and at the end of the Ramayana, his divine status is highlighted. So like here also we hear, Lord Ramachandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So very clearly his position is established that he is the Supreme Lord. He is worshipped even by Brahma and Shiva. So he is Vishnu himself, incarnate, and Brahma and Shiva worship him. But in the Ramayana, this is only done at the beginning, where he is established as an incarnation, as an avatar, and also towards the end, where he is then leaving this world. And everything between, the entire Leela in between, actually his divine status is not actually highlighted or mentioned. He's actually just, it's just explained how he lived and what he did. His divine position is not mentioned or highlighted actually as such. So because when he was, like it says here, he was Manu Jaha, appearing as a human. He appeared as a normal human, and he lamented like a human, and he seemingly had struggles and troubles like any human. And contrary to you could say his selfish interest, he always followed Dharma. So this is the, you could say, amazing but also painful part of the Ramayana, that Lord Rama is so correct, and so ready to sacrifice everything for a higher purpose. That it's, for many people, it's very painful, to read the Ramayana. And I remember Viravahu Prabhu, some of you might know him, is a Prabhupada disciple. He had this sadhana for many years that whenever he was in India, he would read the entire Ramayana one time with his wife. There was a sadhana they used to do. And they said after so many years reading the Ramayana, they couldn't do it anymore. It's too painful, They just, one more time, oh no, they're going in exile again. Dasharatha's dying, and Ramachandra is supposed to become king, but no, just the night before he was to be crowned, as king, Kaikeyi, makes a plot and a conspiracy to send him away, too painful, And then even worse, when Ramachandra finally, after so many years in exile, and then at this point we're hearing how Sita had been kidnapped, and then Ramachandra makes this entire, endeavor to rescue Sita, and finally Sita is, found, and then Rama rejects her, and he says, I cannot be sure if you're chaste. You have been living for so much time in the house of a different man. How can I accept you? So painful. Instead of after this whole endeavor, Ram should be running. Sita, Ram. But no, Ramayana is very dharmic. Very painful. Even of course, Rama is in complete conscious of the nature of Sita and the purity of Sita. Still, just because the people might think negatively about Sita, So just for the sake of the people, he proved Sita's purity, So then Sita entered fire actually, Instead of like a nice, reunion, Rama requests Sita to enter the fire to prove her purity. Imagine. So she enters the fire, and from the fire emerges Agni Deva personified, and he proves, or certifies her purity. And inside of this Leela, there is another Leela also hidden, because actually it is said that, and I think Indra Deva, Agni Dev mentions this also at that point, that we know that Sita had been in the forests, in Chitrakoot and Dandakaranya forests for many, many years. Actually, towards the last year only she was kidnapped. And before she was kidnapped, Lakshmana had made a circle, Lakshmana Rekha, a circle around the dwelling of Sita, Ram, and Lakshman. And he told Sita, if you don't step over the circle, you will be protected. You know? So when and nobody can enter the circle. You know? You can exit, but as long as you are inside of that circle, nobody will be able to do you any harm. So the sadhu, you know, which was Ravana, you know, Ravana disguised as a sadhu, he wanted to enter, but he couldn't cross. You know, immediately a wall of fire emerged. You know, a wall of fire that was protecting Sita. So it says when Sita actually crossed this line, Agni Dev took the real Sita and an illusory Sita, you know, another person was actually the person that Ravana kidnapped. You know? So when Sita entered the fire again, Agni swapped the Sitas, and the real Sita was given back to Ram, and the illusory Sita that was manifested by Agni was taken back. You know? So, but you could say externally looking at this situation, it's very, very painful. You know, very painful. You know, Ram will not give in to his emotions or to his, you could say, own self-interest. He is always ready to make a sacrifice to be an exemplary king. So yes, like that. So you could say Lord Ramachandra encounters throughout his journey all kind of challenges or all kind of situations where he has to make a decision. You know? Also, when he was sent in exile, you know, just before he was sent to exile, Dasharat, it says Dasharat had he saw many omens, you know, many negative omens, very, dreading, inauspicious omens, and he thought, I am old, I am not powerful enough, I should install Ram as the future king, so the kingdom is protected. You know? So he announced that Rama will be crowned as the next king, and all of Ayodhya, the entire city, erupted in celebrations. All of Ayodhya erupted into celebrations. They decorated the city with, banana trees and mango leaves, and washed the entire city, and everywhere festivals were arranged, and the whole city was celebrating for Sri Ram's coronation. And then when it was mentioned that Ram would not be crowned, many people said, Ram, why? You are more powerful. You could just take power anyways. Ram is very powerful, so you should disregard this conspiracy and still assume the crown. Many people, everybody would have supported Ram. Nobody would have been against it. But Sri Ramachandra didn't do that. He very humbly, put the dress actually of barks. Most depictions that we see, Ram is wearing kind of like brahmachari cloth, some saffron cloth, some simple garments. But actually, in the Ramayana, it's mentioned that Sri Ram was wearing bark, tree bark. And there are some tree barks that are, relatively flexible and soft, So he was wearing this, tree barks, like a forest dweller. And he was not at all, offended. He offered still respects to Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi was the one who had, conspired against him. Of course, Kaikeyi is a very interesting personality in the Ramayana, because Kaikeyi generally is seen as the negative character. Kaikeyi was the stepmother of Ram, and Kaikeyi was actually also celebrating. She was also celebrating for the coronation of Ram. She was, beautifying herself and preparing herself for the great coronation day. And Mantara, Mantara came, and Mantara poisoned her mind, and she said, "Don't you understand? The king you have been the king's favorite queen until now. But if Ram becomes the king, then you won't be the favorite queen anymore. The mother of Ram, what's her name? Not Kaushalya. Kaushalya. Kayadu is Prahlad's mother. She will become the favorite queen, and you will be neglected, with your sons. So, in that way, she managed, to poison her mind, and then she decided to go to the mourning chambers. So, in traditional palaces, there is a special chamber or special rooms, where you go to lament and to cry, So if you want to cry, you don't just cry anywhere, Like it says actually in the temple room, one should not cry, one should not scream, one should not chastise people. There's a whole set of rules in the Nectar of Devotion and Hari Bhakta Vilas, what one should not do in the temple room. And even Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj actually in the Gaudiya Math temples, they did not have everything happening in the temple room. In traditional Gaudiya Math temples, they would have only the aratis, were in the temple, and during the aratis, generally they play bells. You might have seen it, and in Jagannath Puri is very common. There's so many Gaudiya Math temples in Jagannath Puri, and when the arati is going on, they just have bells. They're playing bells and banging the gongs. And sometimes they even have some big drums, boom, 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 boom. So the ceremony is similar like in South India, actually. It's very common, and for the main aratis, it's actually an instrumental presentation is made, not kirtan. For kirtan, there's a separate hall. There's the kirtan hall, and there's the temple room, two separate halls. And then there is a lecture hall also. So for us, somehow it's, Prabhupada made it more simple and practical, everything in a temple room. But it's very common that, for different, purposes, there's different mandapas, Like Lord Jagannath also, there's the Bhoga mandapa. There is a whole mandapa, which is filled up with all the Bhoga. And then it's offered, to Lord Jagannath. So palaces had, I forgot the name, but maybe something like Man Mandapa, like a place where you're angry, or offended, you go there, So Kaikeyi went to the, grieving chambers, and the king heard about it, and he was, what is she doing there? Why would she go there? So he immediately went. Dasharath went to see what was happening, and Kaikeyi was, in a very, you could say, she looked very pitiful. It says her hair were open, her jewelry was strewn on the floor. So Dasharath was shocked, and she said, "Whatever you want, I will do it. What happened? How can I, pacify you?" And then Kaikeyi said, "I only have two wishes. You remember many years ago when Dasharath was in a battle, he was almost defeated. And Kaikeyi, she was, warrior princess. So actually, this is very interesting because sometimes we think that in Vedic times women were, not at all active, in even predominantly they might have been, more feminine activities, but there is also quite a few very interesting, you could say, exceptions, and Kaikeyi was one of them. She was, a very capable warrior, So she was not just, at home. She was actually a very powerful warrior, and she actually rescued Dasharath. She was driving the chariot, and rescued Dasharath. Another interesting similar situation is also, I think, Satyabhama, one of the wives of Krishna. I think it was Satyabhama. She was also, known that she, in some situations, in the Bhagavatam it's also described, she said to Krishna, you give me the arrow, I'll fight, You just relax, I'll fight. And she took the arrow and, fought against the demons. So Kaikeyi was, therefore very, very dear to Dasharath. She accompanied him in all kind of, excursions and dangerous situations. She accompanied him. And after she rescued him, he told her, any wish you have, and she said, no, I'll keep this wish for later, now not. I don't want it now. So then she said, now I want to have these 2 wishes actually fulfilled. And Dasha said, okay, if that's all, of course you can have any wish you want. And then she pronounced her wishes, She said, I want that that my son, Bharat, be crowned as the king, and Rama will be sent for 14 years to exile. So Dasharatha was shocked. He said, anything, you can have anything, but those 2 wishes. He said, no, I only want those 2 wishes. So Dasharatha was, completely bound by his promise, but at the same time he was in great grief and anger, and he actually became very angry even at Kaikeyi. But ultimately, when Ram heard about it, he didn't hesitate any moment. Everybody else was his father, all of Ayodhya, everybody, except maybe Kaikeyi and Mantara. Everybody was, shocked. It was like a scandal, and Ram, not at all. He was completely peaceful and accepted this predicament and left for the forest. So he left for the forest, and I forget what this place was, but it was the hermitage of a great rishi, which was, I think, on the other side of the Ganges, or just before crossing the Ganges. Ayodhya is on the Sarayu river. So Sarayu is one of the rivers which is coming from the Himalayas. There's the Yamuna, then there's the Ganges, Sarayu, and then there's a few other rivers actually coming from the Himalayas, from Nepal. And Sarayu is the river where Ayodhya was located, and he went southwards, towards the Ganges. And in a hermitage, Ram had, settled down for some time. So when Bharata returned, Bharata is the brother of Ram. There are 4 brothers: Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. And among those 4, you could say there were 2 of them were always sticking together. Ram and Lakshman were always sticking together, and Bharat and Shatrughna were always sticking together, like that. So there were 2 pairs, of brothers, 4 brothers, and of course these 4 brothers are a manifestation of the Chaturvyuha. They are Ramachandra is Vasudev, Lakshman is Sankarshana, and Bharata and Shatrughna are Pradyumna and Aniruddha. So the Chaturvyuha, reappears again also in the Ramayana as these 4 brothers. So Ram and Lakshman with Sita, they went on exile. Even they didn't have to. Sita would not, stay back in the palace in luxury. She adopted immediately the same vows as her husband. So this is considered to be an ideal wife will always take up the same struggles, the same vows, the same tapasya as the husband. This is considered to be ideal. So Sita immediately took the same vows as her husband, and Lakshman also. He said, "I will not stay back." And Lakshman was very fiery. Actually, he was very, very frustrated. He was ready to kill them all. He was like, "I will kill anybody who opposes you being crowned as the king. We just make a state coup and we still install you as the king." And Ram, pacified Lakshman. And actually, Lakshman is, it's a very interesting aspect of the Ramayana. It says that Lakshman, throughout the Ramayana, he was getting very, very frustrated because he was the younger brother. He always had to follow the mandates and the decisions his elder brother took. So, he had to, go to the forest. Even didn't want to go to the forest. And Lakshman even took, during this time of exile, he took a vow to not even sleep. Lakshman didn't sleep for 14 years. He didn't sleep for 14 years to guard, Rama. So during the night he was always guarding, and during the day he was serving. He didn't sleep for 14 years. And this is very interesting because he did this, he was able to later kill Indrajit. So Indrajit is the chief among the sons of Ravana. Very, very powerful. And he was performing for many years ceremony with Devi Nikumba. Nikumba is a form of very dark tantric worship of Devi, of Durga. And he was about to get incredible powers. I forgot if it was immortality or some incredible amount of power. And he could only be defeated by somebody who had not slept for 14 years. Yeah? Perfect. So therefore, because Lakshman took up this vow, he was able to defeat Indrajit later on as well. And even later, when Ram and Sita were reunited in Ayodhya, Lakshman was tasked with sending Sita away, because there were some bad rumors, in the city. And Ram decided, to send Sita away. And Lakshman was, completely opposed to it, but still he had to do it, Lakshman also had to build a fire pyre for Sita. So he had to do so many things that he hated, He didn't want to do them, but he still had to do them because he was the younger brother. And it says, because of this, in their next incarnation as Krishna and Balaram, Lakshman appeared as the elder brother. He said, now I'm the elder brother. Now Krishna can tell me what to do. So this is the Leela between Krishna and Balaram and Rama Lakshman. But of course, Krishna is very tricky, and he still managed, not by giving, the orders, but by trickery. He still managed, to go by his way. And the most famous example is, of course, the marriage of Subhadra. Subhadra is the brother of Krishna and Balaram, and Duryodhana was supposed to marry Subhadra according to Balaram's wish, because Balaram's favorite, disciple in mace, in Gada fighting, was actually Duryodhana. So, but Krishna's plan was to marry her to Arjuna. So Arjuna came actually disguised as a sadhu to Dwarka, and he was always, exchanging looks with Subhadra, And some people were already thinking, this sadhu is a little bit, what kind of sadhu is this, He's always looking at Subhadra. So then Krishna informed him that, Subhadra will be going to this, temple to perform a ceremony. So he went there and kidnapped Subhadra. And then Balaram became very angry. He was ready to, fight against Arjuna. And then Krishna said, but look, who has the reins in the hand? So when he looked closer, he saw that not Arjuna was actually kidnapping Subhadra, but actually Subhadra was, taking the reins, So then he said, okay, so Balaram also gave his blessings, But Lakshman in the Ramayana, he was, very often frustrated with all kinds of duties he actually did not want to perform. But we were talking still about Kaikeyi. So Kaikeyi's sons, Bharata and Shatrughna, they were they were gone during this time. When Rama was sent away, they were not present. So when they returned, especially Bharata was very, very angry with his mother. He was not at all pleased as she had hoped. She was hoping, he would be happy, that she had arranged, my dear son, I've made some amazing arrangements, you can be the king now. But Bharata was not at all interested. He said, how could you do this? Rama is my lord, my master, my brother. I would never take the throne for him. So he immediately said, okay, we're all going to the forest and we're bringing Ram back. So it says at this time, actually, Bharata constructed a road, a royal road. Sounds almost like a German Autobahn. It says it had, it was very broad, and it had stops, at regular intervals. It was even had lamps at regular intervals, and he constructed this big road all the way to the forest to pick up Ram and bring him back to Ayodhya. So all of Ayodhya, together with Bharata and the royal elephant with the white canopy, so this was the symbol of royalty. Only the king, would sit under this white canopy on this elephant. So he took the elephant to pick up Ram, and it says so many people and soldiers were walking that huge dust clouds, emerged, and the floor, the earth was trembling, So, this entire procession was going towards Ram, and Ram, Sita, and Lakshman could see, this huge procession coming towards them. And then Lakshman immediately thought, look at Bharata, He wants to make sure after 14 years there is no challenge. So he's coming now with the entire army to defeat us, Let him come, So Lakshman was always in a very, fighty spirit. But Ram said, no, I don't think so. I don't think Bharata is coming to defeat us. So this is, I think, to me, one of the most interesting parts of the Ramayana is the conversations that Ram had with all the residents of Ayodhya at this point. Because everybody came, and then they realized they're coming, to bring him back. And usually in most depictions or stories, we only hear, there's a short exchange between Rama and Bharata, where basically Rama tells Bharata that, he will still follow the order of his father. This was the last order of his father, and he will fulfill it, Even Bharata did not want to take the throne. And Bharata took the shoes, the padukas of Ram, and installed the shoes of Ram in the throne, and he himself did not actually even live in the palace. Bharata moved outside of Ayodhya. I forgot the name of the village. He moved outside of Ayodhya, and he dug a hole in the floor, some like a hole in the floor, and he was sleeping there. Why? Because he said, if Ram is sleeping in the floor outside, in the forest, I will sleep below the floor. So this was the mood of Bharata. Bharata, took the same vows as Ram, was wearing also only bark trees and living very, very, very austere. I think the vow that he took was, a very, very interesting diet. He was only eating barley with cow urine for 14 years and sleeping below the surface of the ground. So he was not at all, wanting to enjoy the 14 years until Ram comes back. So, and then during this encounter, everybody was talking to Ram. Everybody, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Shudras, the ladies. I forgot. There's a huge list. All the different sections of society. Everybody was trying to convince Ram, you have to come back to Ayodhya, and Ram uses all kinds of interesting philosophical and dharmic, you could say, points to tell them why he cannot come back. And sometimes he even uses, when the Brahmanas talk to him, he talks similar like Krishna. Teaches karma mimamsa when he's trying to convince his father to worship Govardhan instead of Indra. In a very similar way, he also teaches, you could say, almost atheistic or non-Vedic philosophies, just to make the point that he's still going to the forest. And when everybody has talked to Ram, the only person missing is Kaikeyi. She has also come along, and she is now, she realized now her mistake, because Bharata was very upset at her. So she was actually feeling very remorseful already at that point. This is at the very beginning of the 14 years. Very beginning of the 14 years, just after Dasharat has passed away. And she's also very remorseful, but she's very, very shy, because everybody is thinking it's her fault. It's because of her that Ram is going now, So finally, at the very end, it's like, maybe you know this when everything is going around, the microphone is going around, and then everybody has sung already. Now the mic is coming to me, and you're the last person. So that was the position of Kaikeyi. She was the last person. Everybody had tried to, convince Ram. So then everybody's like, okay, Kaikeyi, you did it. Now you solve it, So Kaikeyi approached Ram, and it says that Ram took her to a little bit more private, area, apart from everybody else. She, expressed her, remorse, and she said, it was all a mistake. I don't know why, what came over me, how I could have, been poisoned in such a way. Please come back. These two wishes, I don't really wanted them actually. And she tried really to convince Ram, and then Ram finally revealed to her and said, "No, don't worry. This is all part of the lila. You were covered by Yoga Maya, to act in such a way because I have to go to the forest. I have to defeat all these demons. I have to defeat Ravana. And you were only an instrument in this lila. So there's no fault at all with you. You be completely peaceful. You are my mother, and I take your command just as a pretext to go to the forest." So it's very interesting. Kaikeyi was actually not at fault. She was actually very nice. So, like that. So there are so many facets, of course, of the Ramayana. And I want to focus now in the last minutes a little bit on a few more points that are mentioned here in the verse, especially Jatayu. So Jatayu is also one of these very, very painful episodes of the Ramayana. Jatayu was a very powerful bird, and he was the brother of, I forgot, Sampati, yes, very famous birds, if you read a little bit the Puranas, Sampati and Jatayu. And Jatayu actually was spending time with Ram, Lakshman and Sita in the forest. He was many animals actually. There's many very, very beautiful descriptions actually how Ram was living in Chitrakoot. It's still a very beautiful area in India, in Madhya Pradesh, in central India. Chitrakoot. Many people go there for Ayurvedic treatment because it's very peaceful and very natural, and a lot of rivers and clean water, unlike other parts of India. And in Chitrakoot, actually, it says all the beasts of the forests, all the animals, all the birds, everybody supported Ram, Lakshman and Sita in their dwelling in the forest. They helped. It says the birds and the animals would actually carry different things for Ram and bring all kinds of flowers and fruits and berries, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is present. Naturally, you could say the nature of the soul becomes evident, and they spontaneously started serving Ram in the forest. And also Jatayu, a big, powerful bird, was amongst the animals of the forest who were serving Sita, Ram, and Lakshman. So Jatayu noticed, when Sita was kidnapped, and he immediately started, fighting against Ravana. And actually, the description in the Valmiki Ramayana is quite extensive. It was a big battle, actually. And actually, Jatayu managed to harm Ravana quite badly. And he was, it almost seemed that Jatayu might be able. This was just after Sita was kidnapped. It seemed as if Jatayu would be able to defeat Ravana. But then finally Ravana, took some special weapon and cut, his wings, and harmed him, and then he fell from the sky. But he was not dead yet, He was actually, only his wings were cut. So when Rama and Lakshman came back, and found the dwelling empty, Sita had been kidnapped, then they started searching for Sita immediately. Then after some short time, they found Jatayu. He was lying there on the floor, and if you read the Ramayana and you don't cry at this point, then your heart is made of stone. It's such a painful, it's so heart-wrenching, how Jatayu, this heroic, powerful ancient bird, is lying there calling Ram, Ram, and the last moments of his life, chanting the names of Ram. And, he sacrificed, to rescue Sita, everything, So here it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam how Lord Ram performed a funeral ceremony for Jatayu, like a son. Yeah? So basically Jatayu, and this he had like a parental relationship with Lord Ram. He was taking care of them, and protecting them and serving them. So when Jatayu passed away, first he gave a hint, in which direction, Sita had been kidnapped and by whom. So Ram knew then for whom to look and which direction to search. And Jatayu then passed away, in the arms of Ram. Ram took Jatayu on his arms, and until his very last breath, Ram was holding Jatayu, in his arms, and then he passed away. So it's beautiful but very painful at the same time. So then it says, like a normal human being, he performed his duty, as the son, and performed his final rites ceremony. And then he went on to Kishkinda, Kishkinda. And actually it's very interesting because some people are a little bit, some people, especially like you say modern historians and Indologists, they more or less try to say, well, Ram is just a legend, it's not really history, Very common, especially in modern day India, there's a lot of discussion, if Ram is real or not, or it's just some mythology, But actually the geography is very proving that actually it's a real story, Because all the sites, so Ayodhya is at the very north, then we have Dandakaranya forest, Chitrakoot, and then Kishkinda is modern day Hampi, Hampi, very famous city. It used to be in the 16th century one of the most powerful empires in the world actually, and Hampi was the capital of the Vijayanagara Empire. And this city was so wealthy, many Portuguese traders actually described the city of Hampi. It's very interesting because this area is like a high plateau, with huge rocks, in all sizes and shapes, So this was the kingdom of the monkeys, Kishkinda, it says originally. And much later on this, Vijayanagara kingdom was built up there. Until the 16th century was one of the most wealthy places, biggest cities on the planet, until it was destroyed. And then further south is Rameshwaram. Rameshwaram is where the bridge to Lanka begins. So actually, until 500 years ago, India and Lanka were connected by this bridge still. So you could say 500 years ago, Lanka was not really an island, actually. This bridge was still, connected. And it was only around 500 years ago that there was a big cyclone, like a tsunami or something like that. And this, the river was, the bridge was washed away, the Rama Setu. Nowadays, it looks like it's in the ocean, but it's only like a few meters below the surface. The bridge is still there, the bridge between India and Lanka. And then, of course, there is Lanka. And in Lanka, near Kanchi, there is, I forgot the name, the modern name, but this is supposed to be the palace of Ravana. And it's a very, very mysterious place. It's a huge rock, gigantic, huge rock in the middle of the island of Sri Lanka. And a whole palace is like remains, the leftovers of a palace, you can find up there, and many structures surrounding this huge rock. And nowadays they have built metal stairs, so you can climb up. But it's a really huge rock. So until they built these stairs there, the mystery remains. How did ancient people, build this entire palace on top of this rock, which is, almost impossible to climb. So this is supposed to be the palace of Ravana. So there's a lot of archaeological sites and names. The names have remained, over so many thousands of years. So there is plenty of proof that actually the Ramayana is not fiction but reality. And in Kishkinda, Rama met Sugriva. Sugriva had a brother. His name was Vali. His name is mentioned here. He made friend with the monkey chiefs, and after killing Vali, arranging for the deliverance of Mother Sita. So this is also very, very interesting pastime, which actually reappears in the Chaitanya Charitamrita again. I think it was in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'm pretty sure, where Lord Ram delivers those trees that through which Lord Ram shot his arrow to kill Vali. So Vali and Sugriva were actually two brothers. They were two brothers, and Vali actually is more powerful. He's stronger, and you could say in one sense he was a bully. So he usurped the power, against his brother Sugriva, and I think he even took his wife, right? Right? Yeah, he took the wife of Sugriva, So, and then he banned Sugriva, from the kingdom. So Rama met Sugriva in the forest, with his close following, especially Hanuman was amongst the following of Sugriva. And Sugriva said, I would like to help you, but I only have a bunch, small amount of, followers, my close followers. I actually have a kingdom, but my brother took it away from me, and he took even my wife, So if you help me defeat Vali, then I can, with the entire army of my kingdom, I can help you. So they arranged for a match, fighting match between Vali. Vali, actually it is said that Vali was regularly coming to hit Sugriva. It's a very, 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 I forgot all the details, but he was regularly coming to try to hit Sugriva. And for some reason, only in Kishkinda area, this area, Vali could not enter. You remember why? Yeah, there was some kind of curse. So Sugriva could only stay at this place, And whenever Sugriva would exit, Vali would jump and hit him on the head, and then jump back. Vali, it's a very interesting person. He was one of the first living entities in the universe, actually, it's described. Very, very powerful. So he could jump, as you would notice, he knew, he had mystical powers as well. He knew, Sugriva is out of this place. He would go and hit him, and then jump back to Kishkinda, to his palace. So Sugriva said, okay, we should stop this, I will challenge you to a final fight, fight to the death, And then whoever wins is the king then. So he challenged Vali, and because Vali was stronger, he was about to defeat Sugriva. And then Ram, from behind, hiding, he shot an arrow through 7 trees and killed Vali. So when Vali was, lying there dying, he said, I told you were Dharmaraj, you're famous as Dharmaraj, and now you are killing me from behind. You're killing me from behind. You're killing me, not like a kshatriya. A kshatriya would never kill anybody from hiding. You always confront somebody, and then so how could you do this? Bali was denouncing Ram. And then Ram said something very interesting. 2 things. The first one was, you're an animal, and animals are hunted, like that. That was the first one. So it's heavy. So he crushed his ego straight away. And then he said, you do not deserve dharma. The way you have behaved, you do not deserve a fair fight. So those 2 reasons he gave, why he killed Bali like that. Okay, so, Ramayana, we can talk much more. There's no end to it. We just scratched the surface. Narahari Mataji will continue in the afternoon after the Abhishekam. So, Sitaram Lakshman Hanumanji ki jai. Shri Shipala Lakshmani Singha Deva Bhagavana ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.